So, the event schedule for August in Uma Musume has been revealed, and aside from the Gold Ship event, which will be showering us with lots of cool freebies each and every day, the other standout event is the first Champions Meeting on the global server. Now, for a quick TLDR of what Champions Meeting is a PvP mode split into 3 phases. In the first and second phase, you get 3 free attempts per day to participate, where each attempt puts you into 5 races, and your goal is to win as many of these 5 races as possible in a single attempt. And then for the final round, it is a single race for all the marbles. Now, what sets this apart from team trials is that each race will consist of 3 players with a team of 3 each, so 9 total runners. And also, your goal in Champions Meeting is to win, unlike team trials where you're mainly looking for high points. Although yes, technically speaking, winning in team trials does give you points. But technically in team trials, even if you lose, you still could get enough points to promote, but that's a whole nother bag. Now, because of this focus on winning though, and because we know the track details, you can do a lot to prepare for the Champions Meeting. For example, you can train up a specific Uma fine-tuned for the course, which is a medium distance race on a left-handed Tokyo track in spring with firm ground and sunny weather. One of the other things that you can do though to prepare for the race, which you may have heard a lot about, is making a debuffer like, for example, Nice Nature. And today, I'm going to try and show you why exactly you should consider making a debuffer yourself, with some actual race examples of how they work, and then also a little guide on how to make your own. So firstly, let's go over the thought process of adding in a debuffer instead of just putting up 3 good trainees. The quote-unquote issue with the 3 trainees example is that, let's be real, depending on your account and your luck with support cards, there is very likely a hard limit when it comes to just how good of a trainee you can make. So let's say you are put up against somebody with a Maruzensky with like 1200 speed, 1000 power, 900 stamina, and like 800 wit. Do you think that you can make somebody that can beat this Maruzensky? Maybe not, but maybe you can get close. So instead of having 3 trainees that all lose to the single Maruzensky by a little bit, why not switch one of those trainees out to be a debuffer to hinder that Maruzensky, taking her down a notch, giving your other 2 trainees a better chance of beating her. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you manage to get 2nd, 3rd, and 4th while somebody else gets 1st, even if they also have the 2 runners in the dead last places. Whoever places 1st wins. Sure, you have less good races that could win, but odds are they were never going to win anyway. But now, at least your other 2 races have a better shot if the last one is a debuffer. As an example of some races, I did some tests with a friend where in one instance, we didn't use any debuffers at all, and then in another race, one team had no debuffers, one team had a single debuffer, and then the last team had 2 debuffers. Now, looking at these races, in the race with no debuffers, my Mayano Top Gun came in 1st, and my alt, which was the control account, came in 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Now, again, hypothetically speaking, imagine if one of those 3 races were a debuffer. Maybe they could have slowed down the Mayano and the Gold Ship enough for one of those other 2 to win. But what is really interesting is then when the race with the debuffers comes into play. I was able to win again with my Rudolph, but that control team placed way lower. In fact, all 3 of them were placed among the debuffers, while the actual races in the 2 teams were right at the top. And I think watching the final stretch probably shows why. Despite having the front 2 spots approaching the final corner with Maruzensky and McQueen, they both use their signature skills, but then they get hit by 2 Dominator skills, one from each of the other 2 teams, which will reduce their speed by quite a bit, as well as of course a handful of other debuffs, rendering their final spurt almost useless, letting everyone else catch up because they were only hit by 1 debuff from the other team. As a reminder, debuffs do not hit your own teammates. Now, to go a bit more in depth on the debuffs, there are 2 main types that we will go over: stamina debuffs and speed debuffs. Yes, there are others, but they're not really as good or impactful, or they're less reliable as well. Speed debuffs are pretty simple. Like that Gold Dominator skill I just mentioned, they simply lower the current speed of the runners temporarily. This is of course always useful. If you're running slower, that means that you're probably less likely to win. But it could still be counteracted by, say, having a big enough lead that the speed drop doesn't matter, or having skills that can also increase speed. So think of speed debuffs like a road bump. They slow you down momentarily, but that's about it. After that, you can carry on running. Now, stamina debuffs on the other hand have the potential to absolutely devastate a runner. These skills essentially make runners consume more stamina as they run. So instead of a speed bump, think of this as taking a chunk of fuel out of your car. Now, if you already have more than enough fuel for the drive, this loss in fuel doesn't really mean anything to you. But if you were already low on fuel, with just enough for the race, and we now remove that last bit that you have left, you are pretty much out of the race entirely. And I think the big reason why debuffs look like they will be so useful now is that I think many of us probably learned the hard way in the first legend race against El Condor Pasa that once you don't have the free bonus stats during the career mode, you start to realize that you need a lot more stamina than you might think, especially for medium and long distance races. And so maybe if you get lucky and are paired up against somebody that has yet to learn this lesson, and they're only running, with Umas that have just enough stamina to make it through, well, that's when you can drain their stamina and then get an easy win against them. Now, that's not to say that you should only focus on stamina debuffs, because again, if the opponent does actually have a good amount of stamina, or say a lot of gold recovery skills, such as Breath of Fresh Air and Swing Maestro, stamina debuffs will essentially do nothing to them. Now, you could run 2 debuffers, one for speed and one for stamina, but then you're kind of putting all your eggs into your one ace runner, which does get very risky. What if they get a late start? What if they are a late surger and the other debuffers on the field all have skills focusing specifically on late surges? It'd still be a better idea than to spread out your winning options to say across 2 different strategies. Say for example a front runner and a pace chaser. And if you're seeing this and thinking to yourself, how can you avoid the wrath of these debuffers? My advice to you is that however much stamina you think you need for the race, add like another 200 or so to that amount, or an extra gold recovery skill. But okay, so now after seeing all of this, you think to yourself that you want to make your own debuffer. Well, let's show you how. Firstly, the options. You've probably heard that Nice Nature is the go-to debuffer, and there's a good reason. Aside from being a 1-star, so more easily accessible, she has 2 gold stamina debuff skills available in her kit as long as you upgrade her to potential 5, which is a bit pricey though, so at best you'll probably get her to potential 3, which does still give her the mystifying murmur skill. But some other options are Air Groove and Grass Wonder, both 2 stars who get the Dominator skill at potential 3, a speed debuff, as well as some other regular debuff skills in all of their kits. But honestly, what really makes a good debuffer comes down to the support cards, and also a bit of luck. Anyone can technically be a debuffer if you give them the right skills, but the benefit that the ones I mentioned have is that from their potentials they have the gold skills, right? So aside from them having access to them guaranteed, they are of course more powerful, with Nature's gold stamina skills being 3 times more effective than the regular versions, and the gold Dominator skill being 66% more effective than the regular version. I'm going to show you an example of a Grass Wonder debuffer that I made that resulted in a lot of debuff skills that hit all types of strategies. So firstly, I ran with 4 wit cards and a stamina card as well as a speed card, once again showcasing the power of wit maxing. Now the main supports are actually ones that pretty much everyone should have because it is a rare version of Simbali Rudolph. This rare support card has a stamina debuff for all 4 of the running strategies. The other card that you could use is Nice Nature, which we have gotten for free from the event. Assuming of course you aren't training Nice Nature herself, you can use this, and then this card can give hints for Murmur and Sharp Gaze as well as hesitant late surges. Naturally of course, Nice Nature herself will have the option to get Murmur and Sharp Gaze by default anyway. Now another good card that everyone should have access to for debuffs is the SSR Rice Shower that you get from reading the main story. Specifically, if you buy 2 extra copies with club points to get this to level 40, you unlock the unique perk that gives friendship bonus, but more importantly, hint frequency. Marvelous Sunday is just a good wit card in general, but she does also give some debuffs too. Now I just mentioned hints, but let's talk more about that. All of the skills that I just mentioned from the support cards come from hints. That is the red exclamation point when you train with them during a career playthrough. So when you trigger a hint, there is a chance to get either some stats or a hint for one of the skills shown in that menu. So when you do your career run for this debuffer, you want to keep an eye out for those red exclamation points, specifically when it is with Simbali Rudolph, because again, that card has mostly debuffs, all of which you do want. If you happen to forget which skills you could get from a hint, you can always press on the little icon during the training and check out the skills tab to see what they have to offer. Now, one important thing to consider when getting these exclamation points is that you can only acquire hints for skills that you have not yet purchased. This is different from, say, inspiration or support cards that would always give you, say, corner recovery hints despite you already having bought it 2 turns ago, which definitely hasn't happened to me. But you can actually use this to your advantage though. Let's say you got a hint for subdued frontrunners from Simbali Rudolph on the previous turn, and now on the current turn, you see that there is another exclamation point. If you have these skill points, you can go and buy that subdued frontrunner skill to remove it from the pool, so that when you train with Rudolph now, you could get a hint for one of the other subdued skills, which now makes it available for purchase, as opposed to say you getting unlucky and getting a hint for the same skill. Which, yes, even though it does make it cheaper, you ideally want to make as many skills available for purchase as possible. And to try and buy out all of these skills, you will mostly be focusing on a wit deck and training wit as much as possible. I guess this counts as like a follow-up to the wit maxing video now. But just like in that video, as I mentioned, aside from getting a bunch of skill points from training, you will also happen to get some speed as well as you train wit. So I recommend inheriting stamina and power from your legacies to help cover those stats that you won't be training as often. And since you're going to mostly be training wit, this also means that your activation rate for your skills will be a lot higher. But naturally though, this trainee will not be the best runner there is. But that's fine though, because you don't necessarily have to win every single career race. You just need to make it to the end, because the longer the career, the more turns you have to get these potential skill hints. Also, coming back to that inheritance, that is actually also another way to get some more debuffs on your trainee. That way, if you get lucky during either of the two inspirations, you could get some more skills passed down. But that of course is also down to RNG. One thing I'd like to highlight on my Grass Wonder though, is that one of the legacy skills that I did get lucky enough to inherit was Lone Wolf. Now, this may not seem like a debuff skill, but it does absolutely belong on a debuffer. This is to essentially prevent anyone else in the race from having it for a free speed bonus. But otherwise though, the biggest thing I want to emphasize when it comes down to training debuffers is that like everything else, it does end up coming down to RNG and getting lucky. You need to get lucky and have the support cards appear with the red exclamation points, and then you have to also get lucky and hope that they give you the hints for the right skills, while also still trying to juggle enough stats to actually try and beat the career run. But at the end of the day though, all of this might still be easier to do than trying to pray for the ultimate god run when it comes to improving your main runner for a chance at winning during the champions meeting. But otherwise though, I hope that you enjoyed the video or that you learned something new. If you did, please do consider leaving a like and also subscribing for more. And also comment down below what else you would like to learn more about. Maybe if there's enough interest, I'll do a video on how to prepare an ace runner for this specific champions meeting coming up. But otherwise though, until next time, good luck in your runs and bye bye!